Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Behind the Bulletin. Today, we dive into a deeply emotional and truly heartbreaking story that has shaken fans across the world. In a moment that stunned the entire entertainment industry, Ye-jin broke down after receiving a devastating revelation about her health, one that no one saw coming. What happened behind the scenes? What truth was so overwhelming that it brought one of Korea's strongest, most beloved actresses to tears? Stay with us, because we're uncovering every detail of this emotional shockwave, starting right now. The news broke quietly at first, just a faint whisper drifting through anonymous forums. A rumor too faint to believe, too unreal to accept. But everything changed when Sun Ye-jin appeared at the private consultation center, escorted by two staff members who looked unusually tense. The moment she stepped inside, shielding her face under a black cap, fans who happened to be nearby sensed something was wrong. Her steps were slow, heavy, almost reluctant, as if every movement carried the weight of something she wasn't ready to confront. Inside the clinic's dimly lit hallway, the atmosphere felt unnaturally still. The receptionist whispered urgently to a nurse, glancing at Ye-jin with an expression of controlled concern. Doctors moved quietly, exchanging hushed, serious looks. Everyone seemed to know something except her. Unspoken dread lingered in the air like a storm cloud waiting to break. She sat alone in the consulting room, fingers interlocked tightly on her lap. She tried to steady her breath, but the rising anxiety made her heart race uncontrollably. The doctor finally entered, holding a folder so thick it made her stomach drop. His expression was calm, but not comforting. Eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too many lives shaken by truths too heavy to bear. He sat down slowly across from her, folding his hands over the report as if trying to build a barrier between her and the devastation inside. Sun Ye-jin SSI, he began softly. Afraid we've found something. Those words alone broke the world open. Her entire body tensed. She felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine. She clasped her hands tighter, her nails digging into her skin. The doctor continued explaining. The moment she heard the phrase abnormality in your recent scans, her mind went blank. The room began spinning slightly, the air turning thick and suffocating as fear wrapped itself around her. It had started so simply: fatigue, dizziness, nausea she blamed on exhaustion from filming, traveling, and caring for her young child. She brushed it off, ignored it, pretended everything was fine. But now, sitting there under the clinical white light, she realized how foolishly she had underestimated her own symptoms. The doctor slid the report toward her. Her hand hovered above it, trembling uncontrollably. She forced herself to look, her eyes scanning the page slowly until she reached the highlighted section that shattered her completely. Her breath hitched, her vision blurred. The world around her collapsed into ringing silence. No, this can't be, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The doctor leaned forward gently, but she leaned back instinctively as if distance could protect her from the truth. Tears gathered in her eyes, spilling over before she could wipe them away. She covered her mouth, trying to stifle her sobs, but the weight of the revelation crushed her composure. Shoulders shook, her tears falling freely onto the report that felt heavier than any script, any award, any responsibility she had ever carried. Is it serious? She choked. The doctor hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, but that hesitation was enough. It stabbed through her like an invisible blade. We need further testing, he said carefully. But it's something we must address immediately. The final word echoed mercilessly. Immediately. Her mind spiraled. Images of her son flashed through her thoughts, his tiny hands, his laughter, the way he reached for her every morning. She pictured Hyunbin's face, the man who had stood by her through storms and miracles. She imagined his smile turning into worry, his calm eyes filling with fear. The idea of hurting them, of bringing this darkness into their warm little family, shattered her heart into pieces. Her tears came harder, her breath ragged and trembling. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. The doctor rushed forward, helping her sit back down. Pushed his hands away gently, shaking her head in disbelief. I can't tell my family, she whispered. Not yet. I can't do this to them. But deep down, she knew the truth would surface sooner than she wanted. And the moment she stepped out of that room, everything she knew, everything she relied on, would never be the same again. The hallway outside felt colder than before. Fluorescent lights hung quietly, casting shadows that stretched across the floor like dark reminders of the reality she couldn't escape. Her throat tightened as she walked slowly toward the exit, desperately wiping her tears. But her body betrayed her. 2 steps, she paused, overcome by a wave of grief so overwhelming it left her breathless. Her phone buzzed. It was Hyun-bin. She froze. His simple message, "Are you done? I'll pick you up if you want," stabbed her heart deeper than the diagnosis itself. She imagined him waiting in the car, aware of the secret now tearing her apart. She wanted to text back. She wanted to run to him. But her hands shook too violently to type anything coherent. Instead, she silenced the phone. Couldn't face him. Not like this. Yet. Outside the clinic, reporters had begun gathering, drawn by rumors but unaware of the severity. They snapped photos the moment she appeared. Flashes blinded her. The chaos amplified her panic. She tried to hide her swollen eyes behind her mask. But her trembling posture gave everything away. Ye-jin SSI. Are you sick? Is it true you're undergoing tests? Is everything okay? Questions stabbed at her like needles. She tried to respond, forcing out a soft "I'm fine." But her cracked voice betrayed her instantly. The reporters fell silent for a split second, stunned by the fragility in her tone. Silence was louder than any scream. When she finally reached her car, collapsed into the backseat, gripping her chest as sobs consumed her again. Her manager tried to comfort her, but Ye-jin shook her head, unable to speak. The drive home blurred into a haze of tears and fear. Every streetlight, every honking car, every passing stranger reminded her of a life she might no longer be able to protect. Inside the house, she found a pair of tiny shoes by the door. Her son's toys scattered across the living room. Small drawing taped to the refrigerator, a crayon scribble of their family, mommy, daddy, baby, holding hands. The sight broke her. She slid to the floor, uncontrollably, clutching the paper against her chest. Heart screamed with questions she didn't want to face. What if she couldn't watch him grow up? What if she couldn't stay beside Hyun-bin? What if this secret swallowed their future whole? At that exact moment, the door opened softly. Hyun-bin stepped inside, holding a takeout bag and smiling tiredly, until he saw her. His smile vanished. He rushed to her instantly. Everything. Ye-jin. What happened? Hey, look at me. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Sobs only grew louder as he pulled her into his arms, voice trembling as he whispered her name again and again. "Say what's wrong, please." But she couldn't. Not now. Not yet. She buried her face in his chest, gripping his shirt with shaking hands. He held her tighter, unaware that his embrace was the only thing keeping her from collapsing completely. The moment stretched into heartbreaking silence. Silence filled with fear. A silence filled with love. A silence filled with a truth she wasn't ready to reveal. And somewhere deep inside her trembling heart, she whispered the question that would haunt her in the days to come. If this is the beginning of the end? That night, the house was quieter than it had ever been. The kind of silence that presses against the walls and sinks into the skin. Heavy and suffocating. Ye-jin sat alone at the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the dark window. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, her body trembling with the weight of the secret she still couldn't say out loud. The diagnosis sat in her bag like a ticking bomb, each second dragging her closer to the moment she feared most, telling the people she loved. The bedroom door creaked open softly. Hyun-bin stepped inside. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The worry in his eyes was louder than any words he could have said. He moved toward her slowly, as if afraid that even the sound of his footsteps might break her further. He knelt in front of her, taking her shaking hands into his. Her last defense collapsed. "Ye-jin, whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone." His voice trembled. Not from anger, not from frustration, but from fear, the fear of losing her. He tried to answer, but the words tangled painfully in her throat. Tears spilled down her cheeks in a silent, aching stream. She shook her head helplessly as if begging fate to rewind the day, to erase the truth she had been forced to hear. He squeezed her hands tighter. "Is it something serious?" he asked softly. The moment the question left his lips, her lungs tightened, her shoulders shook, and she collapsed into his embrace with a broken gasp. Her fingers clutched his shirt desperately. if she were holding on to the last piece of safety she had left in the world. Hyunbin froze, not because he didn't want to hold her, but because he understood too well what that reaction meant. He wrapped his arms around her fully, pulling her as close as he could. He had been resisting spreading through him like ice. "Please," he whispered into her hair. "Tell me." Sobs echoed through the room. Raw, fragile, unrestrained. After what felt like an eternity, she leaned back slightly, her eyes red and glistening. Opened her mouth again, but all she could manage was a cracked whisper. I don't know how to say it." Cupped her face gently, brushing away her tears with trembling thumbs. "Then let me stay with you until you can." His voice was breaking. His gaze stayed steady, solid, full of love. Full of vows he didn't know how to speak aloud. The very sight of his unwavering presence shattered her heart even more. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe, forcing the words out even though each one sliced through her like glass. They found something in the scans. Hyunbin's breath caught. His eyes widened just a fraction. A flash of panic crossing his expression before he swallowed it down, hiding the terror behind calm determination. "Treatable?" he asked, though his voice betrayed the fear he fought to control. Tears filled her eyes again. A fresh wave. A deeper one. "They don't know yet." Silence. A crushing, suffocating silence. Hyunbin closed his eyes for a moment, steadying himself before pulling her back into his arms, holding her tighter than ever. Heartbeat pounded against her ear, fast, shaken, human. He kissed the top of her head, his voice cracking as he whispered, "We'll face it together." For what it is. Her tears fell harder at his promise, a promise she had longed for yet feared. She clung to him, her body shaking as grief, love, fear blended into one overwhelming storm. Down the hall, their son stirred softly in his sleep, unaware of the anguish that had settled into the walls of their home. And in that moment, his heart broke all over again. She pictured his tiny hands, his innocent smile, the way he said "Mommy" with pure joy, and the thought of leaving him, of missing even a single moment of his growing life, ripped through her like lightning. She whispered his name between sobs. Hyunbin's arms tightened instantly, his own eyes filling with tears he refused to let fall. He held the back of her head, his voice trembling as he promised again and again, "You're going to be okay. You have to be okay." Neither of them could ignore the truth. Their lives had just changed. The future had shifted, and the storm was only beginning. And so, as the night closed in around their quiet home, the reality of son Ye-jin's devastating revelation settled like a shadow neither she nor Hyunbin could escape. Fear, the uncertainty, the unspoken questions trembling between them, all of it marked the beginning of a battle they never expected to fight. Yet in that darkness, their love shone brighter than ever. Fragile but fierce, proving that even the strongest hearts can break, and still keep beating. The journey ahead remains unclear, frightening, painfully unpredictable, but one thing is certain, she is not facing it alone. And as fans across the world hold their breath, pray, and hope for brighter news, her story becomes a reminder of the strength it takes to confront the truth, courage it takes to keep moving forward. Thank you for joining us on this emotional and deeply moving story here at Behind the Bulletin. Your support, your compassion, and your unwavering attention allow us to continue bringing you the most heartfelt, powerful, and unforgettable stories from the world of Korean entertainment. Stay with us, because the next chapter may be the one that changes everything.